was the most legendary thing a student did at school? Story 1. My friend once was pissed off at the rest of us guys, 5 of us. He chased us into the bathroom because he wanted to be a tough guy and thought one of us was hiding in a stall. He says, "Peekaboo, I see you," and kicks the stall door in on a teacher we all knew, taking a. The teacher said, "I see you too, Nathan, now close the door." I will die the day I forget about that, lol. Story 2. This kid in my class put the school for sale on Craigslist. He provided the school's attendance office number as a point of contact because everyone hated the receptionist there. They were getting calls from interested buyers for days who wanted to buy a multiple acres of property with a big swimming pool and a track. Story 3. My English teacher was close to retirement, had really poor eyesight. A mate started the lesson on the right side of the classroom, managed to shuffle both himself his desk to the back of the room and then over to the left. He then managed to climb through the window, sauntered round the building, came back into the room, apologized for being late. Story 4. Teacher everyone hated just cause he was a pure bully. We had a fair snowfall and he was on yard patrol. This shy kid launched the perfect snowball 40 feet and it went in his cup of juice, splashing out and soaking him. Kid went from zero to hero real quick. Edit really didn't expect this reaction, huh? This was approximate 15 years ago and we still talk about it today when in with a friend from school. Story 5. This kid once brought a backpack full, and I mean completely full of marbles to school. He went to the main staircase near the front up the 3rd floor and dumped the whole bag over the stairwell. How those marbles didn't break the glass trophy case at the bottom is beyond me, but marbles went everywhere. Surprisingly, he never got caught. He either managed to run to one of the stairwells at the end of the hall and get to the bottom before teachers had time to react, or he hid somewhere until the first bell rang. Story 6. A kid hit the fire alarm when the mayor was visiting our school. For context, we had an assembly the week before where we were specifically told not to hit the fire alarm during the mayor's visit unless there was an actual fire, as it was a common occurrence at our school to just hit the fire alarm whenever. Story 7. The senior prank one year was hiring a mariachi band to follow our principal around all day. He loved it, went classroom to classroom so everyone could see it and take pictures, videos, and have a fun break from class. Story 8. A special needs kid got a 2-day in school suspension because he threw a sharpened pencil into the drop ceiling tile. He saw a friend of mine do it and thought it was the coolest thing ever. A kid on the football team heard about what had happened and protested the suspension directly to the assistant principal. The principal stuck firm to his decision and threatened, and if anyone else gets caught, it will be out of school suspensions. The following Monday the entire 2nd floor was closed down for the morning. Come to find out the kid and the football team got into the school over the weekend and just blanketed the entire 2nd floor ceiling with sharpened pencils. The video of it was stellar. Story 9. Teacher tries to open the door, it does not move. Teacher says hell, ask the maintenance dudes to help open it. While he's away, dude tries to force the door open, instead falls through the door, as he just creates a hole. Doing so, it does however open the door. Teacher comes back without maintenance guy. Teacher blanks for a moment, then says thanks for opening the door. You'll need to know who to thank. No one answers, but only one dude has pieces of in his hair, so he got caught. Story 10. Not mine, but someone superglued the computer mice mouses to the desks in the computer lab. It was my son. My son did that. He never got caught, just told me long after the fact. Story 11. Kid broke into the PA speaker room or whatever it's called, locked himself in and started publicly dismissing everyone's future detention sentences one by one. Then he started to just burp in the mic before we heard the teachers and the principal break in. The principal shouted you, then it got cut off. Story 12. Maybe not legendary, but an interesting and funny experiment. There were 3 high schools in my hometown. 2 of them, both named after famous historical figures of said town, were in a sort of rivalry with each other, nothing serious, but the students would casually trash talk the other school a lot, mostly in good fun. Each school had a display case with a bust of their respective historical namesake somewhere in the building. They were just some decoration, objects that you would pass by every single day and pay little attention to, so we figured we'd test how little attention people actually paid these things. So one night, a few buddies of mine and I got together. Most of us were from my school, but we had a few inside men from the other one as well. We split up into 2 teams, got access to both buildings simultaneously, picked open the very cheap locks on the display cases, grabbed the busts and switched them. Keep in mind, these schools were not that close to one another, and none of us had been old enough to drive at that point, so we had to carry these limestone busts through half the town. We then locked the busts into the display cases again and left. We had managed completely non-destructive entry to both schools, so nobody ever found out. It took almost an entire school year for anyone to notice. To this day, no teacher has ever found out who was responsible, but no damage was done, so they didn't try too hard to figure it out. Story 13. It was legendarily stupid. We had mandatory swimming classes in my sophomore year of high school. Anyways, 3 days a week. The school was getting bomb threats and all of us would have to leave class and go to the gym. The threats always happened at the same time. This went on for weeks and weeks. It turns out there was this kid who didn't want to swim and who was using a payphone down the block to call in the threats. This was 1985. He got suspended for 2 weeks and had to take gym for summer school. He is a legend to this day, yet I can't remember his name. Story 14. Picked up the front end of the tractor, deadlift style, with the teacher sitting in the driver's seat of the tractor. The tractor was part of the AG department. It was a rural school. Story 15. I went to high school in the early 70s. Our city had just implemented the desegregation of the high schools by closing the only black high school and busing those kids all over the city to the white high schools. Racial tensions were pretty high at my school. Many of the white kids resented having to go to school with black kids, and the black kids were understandably upset at being yanked out of their own high school and bused. It was lunchtime in the cafeteria. I was sitting at the next table over from where a white guy was sitting. I see a black guy walking up to the white kid. He stops in front of the white kid and say, "Hey, honky." The white guy says, "Hey," and the whole room got real quiet. I could see kids looking around, trying to decide what to do and where to run or hide, the expectation being that there was about to be a fight. Then both the black guy and white guy bust out laughing and hug each other. The black guy sits down and they eat lunch together. People looked so confused as they couldn't comprehend what just happened. It turns out both guys were in drama class together and had decided to troll everyone. Story 16. In high school, two seniors who had been buds since forever got into a fight in the hallway in between class periods. What makes it legendary is that they first met in Taekwondo class. When they were in kindergarten, movies just show the performative aspect of martial arts. This was just, they were doing flying kicks at each other. It was so brutal, the teachers didn't dare to break them up. They only stopped because they got tired from beating each other senseless. Story 17. This is legendary in a bad way. One girl from my wife's high school stole a male teacher's pen drive, found a video of him jacking off on the couch with two other guys also jacking off, and sent it around to the whole school. This was in a fairly conservative place and he was not openly gay. He didn't get fired or anything, but she says that he was a really nice fun teacher up until that point and afterwards was dry and grumpy to most of the students. On the one hand, you probably shouldn't bring a file of your amateur to your job at the high school. On the other hand, what the student did was harmful and illegal on many different levels. Story 18. We had two pretty epic senior pranks in my high school days. The first was somebody replaced the tape of the morning announcements with a close-up of a hardcore scene. At first I thought maybe my homeroom teacher was a perv, but turns out it was broadcast throughout the school. Then my senior year a fellow student got the bright idea to dress up as a gorilla and go up on the roof of the school with a bag of bananas. The SWAT team was called in and it was kinda scary seeing guys with assault rifles outside our classroom window. Then someone told me it was just so and so on the roof in a gorilla costume. He got in a lot of trouble considering he was 18 at the time. Story 19. A boy in my year did ketamine before our politics exam and got an A. Edit update was talking to a friend about this and apparently he spent his entire $4,750 student loan for first year. He left school after fifth year to go to uni in a couple months. Most of it on drink and drugs. He also ended up studying business. So at least the drug use was still on brand for his study choices. Story 20. Started masturbating right before a test, said he needed the post-nut clarity teacher didn't punish him because he did it without taking his out and didn't want him expelled. He's forever known as the math sturbator. Story 21. They found out the password for the high school's website and edited all sorts of things, whether it was exposing certain faculty for being scummy creepy by rewriting their bios or changing the campus security safety tab to snitches get stitches. It made quite the buzz for years to come and as far as I know, they never got caught. Story 22. Long ago, during my senior year, we had an advanced chemistry class, so only like 13 students. It was a test day, so we had a plan. Our valedictorian asks to go to the bathroom before the test. He leaves and sprints to the payphones long ago next to the cafeteria and calls the office. Says he is a police officer and needs to speak with our teacher immediately. The office calls him to the phone and he leaves the room. The rest of us bust out a grocery store birthday cake, put up birthday decorations and balloons, pass out party hats. The whole 9 yards. Teacher gets to the office. The val says blah blah blah. Mickey Mouse and hangs up and sprints back to the class. Teach gets back and we start singing happy birthday. He was like, "But it's not my birthday." Needless to say we had our cake and ate it. Test was postponed until the next week. Story 23. One of my friends brought in a universal remote and tuned it to the TV in the lunch hall. This TV's original remote had long since been lost, so he had the only one. Instead of the news during lunch he would change it to sitcoms etc. The teachers were pretty clueless and kept flicking through dozens of channels only for him to immediately change back. They even started turning it off. He just turned it back on again. About a month of this and the teachers finally gave up. Nobody except our immediate friend group knew it was him doing this, but the entire school had whispers about this mystery man for ending the scourge that was the news channel. Story 24. Threw a bully through a window and single-handedly ended zero tolerance on fighting in my school. I quote, "If him getting suspended for fighting him going to make it worth my while." Story 25. Cut off his thumb in shop, and they couldn't find the thumb. It surfaced weeks later in the shop. Months later I found myself sitting next to the shop instructor at dinner on a field trip and got to hear the entire saga in full gory detail, while trying to eat dinner. Story 26. I don't think the person who did it was ever caught, but during my junior year of high school, someone snuck in chickens, so there were a couple dozen chickens just roaming the halls and all the teachers were panicking. For some reason, the faculty treated them like rabid dogs. There's nothing funnier than seeing literal roadblocks set up around a chicken and 4 teachers all red-faced and pulling their own hair. Story 27. One day in 7th grade the class clown was verbally saddened by the fact that our female math teacher didn't wear a dress again like he had asked. He promised her that tomorrow he will wear a dress as well so that she wouldn't be the only one wearing a dress. Well, next day comes around and she isn't in a dress. Clown comes in not wearing one either and is shocked that she didn't wear one. She responded with neither did you. Then the legend started stripping to reveal that under his normal clothes he was wearing his sister's dress. We all died laughing and he deadass wore it the rest of class. It was too uncomfortable for him though, so he changed back for the rest of the day. Legend TLDR: student wore a dress under his normal clothes to class to prove a point. We had an English teacher in training with poor classroom management skills. She understood little of what was going on in front of her. To prove that point, a friend of mine jumped from a classroom window, it was a good 6 feet to the ground mid-class, and then casually walked through the schoolyard, back into the school, and then came back into the classroom. He told the teacher that he had gone to the bathroom. She nodded and just kept on with her lesson. Edit typo. Story 28. I still have no clue who did it, but someone went around spraying mace or pepper spray or something into the ventilation shafts during lunch. My school had 2 lunch periods to accommodate our population. The first time was in the second lunch period, during which I had class. I was walking in the stairwells to class when I started coughing, along with a lot of others. It felt like I'd swallowed sawdust. I was near the science labs, so I thought it might have been a chemical reaction gone wrong. The next day during lunch the upper forum was completely deserted. As I was going upstairs, my friends and I started noticing we felt the same, like there was sawdust in our throats. When we opened the door off the stairwell to the forum, the effect increased tenfold and a teacher ushered us back into the stairwell. We'd barely gotten to class when the entire school was evacuated. If the culprit was ever found, I never heard about it and word spreads fast, so I'm guessing they got away with it. To the culprit, you for the throat pain, but thanks for the 15-minute evacuation so I didn't have to go to science class. Story 29. It was my senior prom and my class valedictorian, a dude named Tyler, had vanished for a prolonged period of time. Just as people were noticing and asking if anyone had seen him, he reappears in a skin-tight Spider-Man costume on stage with the band and starts breakdancing and pelvic thrusting on stage. 2 years later, he began fighting crime, this time in a different costume. No, really. Story 30. I've shared this story before, but it's probably one of my favorite memories of high school. Halloween costumes were banned in my high school because of some idiots like 10 years before that dressed up and used it as an excuse to hide their face while they vandalized the school. My senior year, more than half of the class decided that we would still dress up and march into the school together in the morning. We all knew we would be punished right away, but it didn't matter. I stayed up all night making a suit of armor out of metallic duct tape and cardboard, along with a broomstick horse to ride. Here is a picture of me that ended up in the yearbook. The next day we all gathered in the parking and waited for everyone to show up. People went all out and there were a lot of amazing costumes. And after about 20 minutes of waiting we started our march in. The deans had learned of our plan and were waiting for us right as we entered. They started pulling people aside in groups and taking student IDs to hand out detentions. In my group there was one guy dressed up as an ATM, and when the dean asked for his ID he started making ATM noises and then slipped the ID out through the slot where you would put your debit card in. It was one of the funniest things, and I was so jealous that my costume was not as clever as his. Even though having so many of us participate was pretty awesome, his costume just made that whole event for me. Story 31. There was this guy who was almost universally liked in my high school. Did everything, AP classes, theater, football, track. His grades were good, but he wasn't the valedictorian. That didn't stop him from getting up during the graduation ceremony and giving a speech like there was nothing strange about it, and they let him finish too. Story 32. For senior prank, a group of kids dressed up in all black with masks. They ran down the main hall of the school with industrial buckets of cheap vegetable oil, pouring it everywhere. I mean everywhere, right before the bell rang for passing period. Kids were slipping and falling all over the place, spreading the oil even further throughout the school. It was so bad they ended up sending everyone home so they could clean up the mess. The school did an investigation, pulling camera footage from campus and interviewing students. Of course the kids were bragging to friends about their accomplishments, so the suspects were pulled into the office. They didn't even need to interrogate them. They knew they all did it. How? They were all wearing the exact same shoes when they pulled it off. They were suspended for 5 days. School was pretty cool with the whole thing. Story 33. School just decided to give everyone iPads after a few years of letting physics class use them as their textbooks. At lunch everyone turned on AirDrop to share memes, which they weren't supposed to do. However, the teachers let it slide and figure it isn't worth punishing since everyone does it and nothing super inappropriate has been found yet. Drugs, etc. One kid in my younger siblings' class airdropped a meme about being the principal that wasn't inappropriate and used a photo of him when he was a math teacher earlier in his career. He found it on some archived page on the internet. From what I recall, the text used was more looking for laughs about how he used to teach math and now is the principal. Basically just some dumb thing that staff would have laughed off after telling him not to use school staff in airdropped memes. The kid who did this had never acted out in school. The worst he probably did was forget an assignment or two. He got detention for a whole week. The principal has a complex. No other student has gotten in as much trouble for airdropping things at the school. Edit. I found a spelling error. Also, I didn't expect to get more than 15 upvotes. Glad you guys are entertained. Story 34. A few people decided to do a senior prank. I was not involved with that prank, but I did another. They broke into the bus yard with old electric impacts and removed the nuts holding all of the benches to the studs on the floor. They glued the doors shut with silicone. Then, they deflated all of the school bus tires. The next morning all of the bus drivers showed up to flat tires not punctured, just released through the valve. While someone was inflating the tires, someone else was cutting through the silicone. When they got all of the tires pumped back up, they went to leave and shortly into their drive all of the benches went flying every which way. There was no school that day. Story 35. A few years after I graduated, the school was preparing to take their assessment tests, which rate the schools. Many people think these tests are a waste of time, but they are important to school administrators. So the principal orders that some classes are interrupted, in order to make sure that all the kids have refreshers in some basic math and writing skills. A few kids in a U.S. history honors class were angry. They resented the interruption, as the classes were preparing them for an independent AP exam that awarded college credit. In response, they decided to intentionally sabotage the assessment tests. Our school was in an upper-middle-class area, and regularly scored in low 90s, the top 10. Then suddenly, the school suddenly scored in the mid-low 80s. Turns out that 15 to 20 students out of 300 turning in absolute zeros can impact an average score. School administrators went berserk, stories were circulated, students were threatened, but nothing came of it. The students never confessed, the tests were anonymous, the school rules didn't forbid poor performance. It helped that the students were led by kids whose parents were well trained in protesting during the 1960s. Was a great scene. Story 36. Someone took in the urinal, and a kid called Robert picked it up with toilet paper. He went and opened the principal's office door so he got a good view of the kid wiping all over the walls. Story 37. In middle school there was a kid in my grade that absolutely hated being at school, so he was always trying to find ways to make everyone else as miserable as him. My math teacher at the time was quite a pacifist, and eventually resulted to ignoring his behavior. The student did not like that at all. So one day he brought in an electric razor and snuck up on her before class had started and everyone was walking in. All of a sudden everyone heard a shriek and we looked to see that the student with the razor in hand and hair on the ground. He basically gave her a reverse mohawk. Lucky for her the rest of her hair seemed to cover it to a degree. That was the last day we saw that student. He got what he wanted though. However, I believe we heard that she pressed charges on him. Story 38. I'm going to have to throw my own kid under the bus here. My whole response to this situation is the Will Ferrell meme. I am not even mad. That is amazing. My kid and his best friend started the bubblegum cartel in middle school. Him and his best friend, they are both Italians. It seems you can't put Italians together without forming a criminal organization. Started a bubblegum MLM and got a good portion of the school involved. Kids on the bottom sold it. My guys provided and made the money. Apparently it got so involved, the middle school on 3 separate occasions had to have a town hall to inform the kids the bubblegum cartel has to stop, and that they don't know who the perpetrators are. But the kids selling gum needs to stop as they are doing all the work and selling gum while the perpetrators are making all the money and they are being taken advantage of. In all of middle school for both years, not a single student turned them in, and the school has no idea that my son and his BFF were the head of the cartel. I was wondering why he kept asking me to buy him gum wherever we went. I thought it was a phase. He then informed me it was free gum to sell. I couldn't stop laughing my off. My partner was incredulous that my son took advantage of me, but I couldn't get mad about it though I should have been. That night, for the first time in my life, I was floating on clouds and felt what peace actually feels like, because I realized my kid is going to be okay. Story 39. This boy stopped a suicide bomber from entering a school in his village where more than 2,000 students were attending classes. Very sad story, but I think it qualifies as legendary. Story 40. A little foggy on the details, but a few stink bombs went off at the same time in 3 separate parts of the building, but no one was ever caught or punished for it. Then they searched everyone before graduation that year to make sure it didn't happen again. I wonder though if it was something more like liquid or an can, cause the school was convinced it was stink bombs, but they never found evidence of them. Edit posted this and forgot about it cause I thought it'd get buried. XD. Kinda funny to see other similar happenings at other high schools. This was over 10 years ago by now, so there's not a lot that I remember about it. Never made the news or anything. Story 41. There were these 2 mean girls who eventually got called out by one of the quiet kids during class. Their boyfriends were there as well and tried to fight him. He beat both of them up and splashed some Gatorade on the girls. The teacher didn't really care, so he walked out and never came back, I guess. It was around the last 2 weeks of school, so I guess nothing happened to him luckily. I hope he's doing well. Story 42. Grew pot in the lunchroom. Planters. Several guys got a VW Beetle on the roof above main entrance one night, created a fake student that was elected homecoming king. This was not discovered by the faculty for 3 months. Post update could not remember the fake student name but pinged an old classmate. It was Elmo Dudley. Dumb teachers. Made the local news. What a riot. Story 43. One of the farm kids in my school brought a dump truck full of hay bales from his family farm and literally blocked off every single entrance and exit to the building with them. He did this really early in the morning, and the school was in the middle of nowhere, so nobody knew exactly who did it except me, his partner in crime. He canceled school for a day and a half. The reason why he did this: the principal was an absolute who hated kids. This kid's sister got in trouble for something she didn't do, and the absolute brought her to the principal's office and made her apologize for trashing the girls' bathroom to the entire school over the PA. When we were done with the escapade, we also filled the car with turkey feed through his open skylight the first day back. While everyone was at a rally about the aforementioned hay baling, everyone had an idea of who did it, but since nobody was around for it and the cameras weren't working, we got away with it. My friend was called to the office to face the same date as his sister anyway, but when the PA turned on, the absolute legend said this: "Hello everyone. I'm sorry that the school got turned into a barnyard, but on the bright side, I bet it made Mr. Principal feel at home. An ass favorite meal is hay." A guy I as friends with hid 26 iceberg lettuces around college. As far as he was aware, only 9 were found. Places included urinals, lockers, behind books on shelves, balanced on banisters and behind lights. It became a full-scale witch hunt for these lettuces. Story 44. When I was a student teacher, some quiet kid was getting from a bully for like a week. So he waited till they were in music class and the bully was on the piano facing the wall, then very deliberately picked up a guitar, stalked across the room, and smashed it to pieces against the bully's head. All of this was caught on CCTV. That was one video that definitely got circulated among the faculty. Story 45. Cypress Creek High School class of 07, senior prank. All the seniors brought the picnic tables out of the cafeteria area and stacked them up into a pyramid in the outdoor amphitheater, and then brought chickens to school and let them loose. Edit Cypress Creek High in Orlando, Florida. Story 46. Not my high school, but our sister school. The seniors decided to put a dead deer in the cafeteria ceiling as a senior prank. Still not 100% sure why they thought this was a good idea. Story 47. Had a friend, Will, who didn't finish an English assignment on time. As punishment, the teacher asked him to look up the definition of and write a 5-page essay on the need for diligence. When he opened the dictionary, the first definition was careful and persistent work and effort. The second definition was a public stagecoach. Will proceeded to write a tremendous 5-pager on the need, or lack thereof, of public stagecoaches. Story 48. We had a strict bathroom policy at a high school I taught at. The office secretary implemented and enforced it like a tyrant. I personally had an issue with this and let my students go when they asked and would email her and tell her. I just couldn't deny this to my students. I knew there was the occasion where a kid was not truly in need of the restroom but wasn't willing to deny those who did, so I just documented and alerted the secretary when I sent a kid down. I mean, the kids were overflowing the toilets by stuffing things down them, smoking in the stalls and all kinds of stuff, so I understood we had an issue. But I still had a hard time denying them. Anyhow, it's a normal school day and my students are all busy working at their desks and I am sitting at mine with another teacher on the other side, and we are calling students up individually to review their work and guide them to the next part of the 2-subject project. As we are in between students, we prepare and make notes for the next student, and a male student comes up and leans against my desk. He says my name and the other teacher is talking and I am looking her way, and the student says my name and then asks if he can go to the bathroom. No more than 15 seconds passes and the teacher stops talking to me and I turn towards the student and he is now making this face and urine is streaming across my desk. He asks if he can go to the bathroom again, and I'm like, what the heck, yes of course, and following him down the hall I ask him why he did that, and he said the previous class and teacher wouldn't let him go and I was taking too long to answer. I was in shock and pissed, no pun intended, because I would always let them go in my class and that didn't need to happen. It upset me that he had been holding it for long enough that he couldn't control himself, and I made that well known to the secretary and the administration and no longer told the secretary or gave her any power over students and bathroom issues. He flooded my desk and the hallway, poor kid. Story 49. Opened a door so hard I ripped it off its hinges. Don't know how, just placed it near the doorway and walked away. The next day it was fixed and forgotten. Story 50. The president of the student council had repeated his last year of high school 4 times. When he finally passed, his friends carried him through the hallways on a wooden cross, shirtless and rocking a rose crown. Story 51. Some girls made a confessions page for my grade at school. Some of the things people were posting got mean, so a guy I know hacked into the account and locked them out of it so they couldn't post any more mean things. Story 52. I had a buddy that was known for knocking out more than one father-son combo during after-school fights. One where the parents ran up to break it up. He turned around and clocked dad. Another when he was fighting near a Main Street bus stop and the father happened to see the fight while driving by. Unfortunately, when the dad hopped out to stop it, the legend turned around and caught dad right on Main Street. Wild. Story 53. That Pakistani kid that saved his school by tackling the suicide bomber near the gate, sacrificing himself for the rest of them. Technically just outside of school, but whatever. Story 54. This kid had been making bongs in our ceramics class and trying to pass them off as sculptures. Well, finally the teacher caught on and instructed him to stop making bongs in her class, and noticed his eyes were red and glassy. Upon realizing that he was high as a kite, she sent him to the vice principal, who ended up calling this kid's dad. His dad had to leave work to get him, and as soon as he pulled up, Roger walked out to the car and his dad pulled a set of jumper cables out of his trunk and repeatedly struck him with them. This was all in perfect view of the ceramics classroom widows. The teacher was horrified. Story 55. I'm going to take legendary as meaning crazy here. Once a kid from my high school got onto the roof in a gorilla mask and started shouting. Not that interesting, right? Except someone called in a bomb gun weapon threat and we ended up with a SWAT team, state police, and helicopters arresting a gorilla man on the roof. I think it was meant to be a senior prank. Story 56. Not students, but the senior class made the national news way back when I still in kindergarten. Senior prank. They bought 2 Madagascar hissing cockroaches and bred them. End of the year comes. I believe they smeared meat all over the halls, then released the roaches. Needless to say, the high school was closed for a bit. One of the people in that class is now my step-sibling. Story 57. A good friend of mine was on holiday at options time. His year head told him tough luck. I have decided your future. For months my friend broke into school and crapped on the teacher's desk. The same teacher ridiculed me for not wanting year photos. My friend arranged for me and the rest of the class to not pay for them. The same teacher became headmaster years after I left. He was great with the sports teams, but a terrible teacher and human being. Story 58. One kid jumped out of a second-story window to avoid the teacher catching him for bringing vodka to class in a water bottle. The alcohol definitely helped his survival. Another kid jacked off during English class, and was ogling the teacher the entire time but would look away when she scanned the room while teaching. Me, a horrified 16-year-old, watched as this kid finished and wiped his hand under his desk. Teacher never saw a thing. Edit for credit to Usmada, teacher never saw it coming. Story 59. In high school I was way into music and had a 3-hour span where I had back-to-back classes in the band room, band, orchestra and music theory. A friend who had the same schedule and I were throwing a party that weekend, and of course we needed lots of booze, so we hatched a plan to forge the band director's signature on an off-campus pass, drive to Tecate, Mexico, get the booze and get back before our last music class. We get to Mexico, buy the booze and toss the spare tire from his mom's brand new car so we can stash the tequila there and head back to school, made it back with minuets to spare, had a legendary party that night.